everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining me today for Tuesdays with Grace. I'm really excited about this project. It was several years ago that we started making Tuesdays with Grace, and this was one of my very first patterns that I ever introduced, and it was called So Easy. It was very popular and everybody loved it. And the reason it's called So Easy, it's because it looks really complicated, but it's really not. It's so easy to put together and piece. You will be astounded. So if you want the So Easy one, I will have that pattern, plus I will also have the pattern for this design that I'm creating. Now, let me just stipulate, it's all subjective. This is you. I want you to quilt you. I quilt the way I want to quilt. I put the colors together that I like. I want you to think outside the box and how would you use this pattern to create a beautiful quilt. That's with the colors, that's with the cutting. So think about that as I'm showing you the process today. Today I'm going to start out with the piecing and the cutting just so that you will have a better foundation. So when you pull the pattern off online, that you can move through it a lot quicker. So let me just talk to you about, let me show you the quilt that I did several years ago, and this is So Easy one, okay? So I'm just going to stand over here and show you, and I quilted this and pieced it, and I thought this is such a cool quilt because you're using a 60-degree ruler. And if you'll notice how cool it is, it looks like really 3D, and it's all done with just a 60-degree ruler. All right, so let me put this back, and I used the automation on this, and I quilted it one block at a time, plus I put a border around it. Well, on this one that I'm doing today, I didn't put a border around it. I wanted to change it up, because I told you earlier on, I do not like to make the same quilt twice, okay? So I tried to think outside a little differently. However, I got stuck with blues, okay? I'm not a big blue person, but that's what I had a lot of, and so that's what I'm using. So it's a good thing I make lots of quilts because we have a lot of choices down the road. So this is the So Easy 2. You'll notice that it's slightly different than the So Easy 1 that I made. The main focus or the main objective of this quilt here is going to be focusing on the center box. You see how it pops? Well, that's what I wanted to highlight as I was creating this. I didn't use the green, I just decided to go ahead and use the dark blue all the way around it. So I replaced that green section with dark blue, and I think it gives it more depth and it doesn't detract. Now, if you want to use a different color, be my guest. This is you taking a pattern and making it your own. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. So, let me just talk about the cutting instructions, okay? So I had a little fun with this. As I was cutting, I did a lot of experimenting, and that's what I'd like for you to do, to decide what you want your strips to be cut. I cut each of my strips 3 1/4 inches. That means the top part right here, this point on that becomes part of the box, is 3 1/4, and each of these sections as well. And when I cut them out, you see that we lose some because it's at a 60-degree. Now this bottom piece here, cut it out at 1 1/2. And you will cut some excess off just to make it nice and even. But I thought it was more important to lose some than to have it uneven at the bottom. So it's okay, we're only gonna lose maybe 1/4 inch, if that. So as you're cutting, that's what I did. So cut them each 3 1/4. Sew them together, and then you start cutting them out using your 60-degree ruler. All right, let's talk cutting, okay? And I want you to experiment because I wanted to use the full 60-degree ruler. This is probably one of the most versatile rulers I have ever used. I love the 60-degree ruler because you can make so many designs and patterns using it. You can make the center, you can make diamonds, you can, I'll use it. The sky's the limit with this, and so I would encourage you, if you don't have a 60-degree ruler in your ruler set, I really encourage you to run out and get one, as well as the right angle one. This is a really nice one because we have all of our markings to make nice even triangles, and we need even and consistency as we're cutting. It's really important for you to cut nice and even, and when you do, it will make the piecing go together and the quilting that much better. So one thing that you need to remember is to use your true grips. These have a smooth backing and they will slide on you as you're pushing against it cutting, so use a lot of true grips. So I will use a true grip right here at the top on each point of my equilateral triangle ruler here, and then I will put some in the center here, and the true grips are clear, so you're not going to miss any of the markings on the markings of the ruler, so you can line it up nice and even. All right, and I do use these markings a lot as I'm cutting. Okay, so now that I've talked about that, it's really important for you as you're cutting to do your test strip first, okay? Do a group first that you think will look good before you start cutting out lots of strips and having them pieced together, and then all of a sudden that's not what you like. Try the experiment, and you could even try with a little smaller size. You don't have to do the full size. You could do make it a little mock-up of a smaller size and cut it out, and then that can be your test one. All right, so as we're cutting, just look at your guide. Make sure that you're following your guide and you're using the little strips to mark off your colors. So notice I have a white one right here, and it has a darker blue and a medium blue. All right, so I need to sew all of those together, so I made my sections. And then after I'd sewn all my sections together, I went and I started cutting them to the size that I wanted. All right, and this ended up being about 8 inches, the full size of the 60-degree ruler. I used that whole thing, and it turned out really, really nice, and it sews together just right. So as you're sewing, one other thing I wanted to point out, sometimes we think the sewing machine needs to be at the fastest speed, and that's good and well, but if you can't keep up with the sewing machine and your tails tend to flap and fly along, slow it down. You will get a more even and more straight piecing line to where it's going to match up better when you're trying to piece your different blocks together. So as I was piecing, I thought, man, I just don't want to use the same old, okay? So I got some prints, okay? And I had a lot of fun because I had a lot of this batik print. And I thought, what would go really well with it? And I found some of these pieces that have the green in it, so they're just green and white. So I cut my strips out. And you're going to sew your strips together, but I'm just using 2. Okay, so I'm using the top, which is going to be part of the box here, and then this piece, this batik right here, is going to be the rest of this section right here where all those are. So as you're sewing, just sew across it, and then you'll move across, and we'll start cutting. Okay, so this is what we're going to do, and then I'll show you how I cut it. So I'm going to sew up along here. We want our piecing to be nice and even. Okay, but if you notice that it's starting to get away from you, slow it down just slightly, a little bit more. All right, so that's all you're going to do, and just wanted to show you. And then you would iron it open, and then you'll cut. All right, so I'm just gonna iron it open, and you can iron it whichever direction. So on this one, when we're just using the one side, I can reverse it. So I can have this as the point, but I could also have this as the bottom piece because I could turn my 60-degree ruler around and use it as well. So as I'm cutting, I cut these a little smaller, so just cut it out, and then you'll turn your 60-degree ruler the other direction. So you'll cut it this direction, you'll cut along the top here. Because I already have the edge cut, I have my point, but this is what I'm talking about, and turning it the other direction, so I'm not wasting anything as I'm cutting, and you'll cut this direction. All right? And if it's easier to turn it around and cut this direction, it doesn't matter. You do you, and you cut the way that's easiest for you. If you will cut the way that's easiest for you, you'll have more accurate cuts. All right, so that's part of the piecing. Now let's talk about putting this together. As I was putting this together, I had a bunch of different little 60 degrees as my points. All right, that's part of the box. And this right here is another part. So you're putting it together. So I have to map it out. I don't know about you, but I can get very confused really quick if I don't have my blocks laid out. Okay, so let me pull it back here so you can see it even more as I'm laying it out. And then I have this cute little block here. So this rounds up. And see, I'm only using a couple of little different colors on this, and what a cute, fun little quilt I have. So there you can see the little box in it. Isn't that fun? Okay, so now that I've done that, I want to spread out and make my little edges. So what I'm going to do is use these little blocks here by going around to just kind of finish it off, and you will have a cute little wall hanging as we're coming around. So it'll be like this, and you could use a couple more all the way around it. All right, so let me show you the one that I pieced together, and I just have one seam I need to make. So this is it, okay? It's a cute little table topper right here, okay? So this is my little table topper that I'm going to quilt in the first part, and then I'm going to show you my quilt that I actually made using my blues for the second part. We're going to quilt it two different ways. I'm going to use the edge to edge for this one, and then I'm going to use Power Panto for the big one that I'm going to quilt. So I just wanted you to notice how I put it together. So as you're piecing, I've laid it all out, okay? So you're going to piece your two blocks together at a time, and then you're going to piece your rows together. So notice I've got my two rows that are going to be pieced together. I've already got them pinned, but I wanted to talk to you about pinning. All right, so as you're pinning, make sure your points match up, and make sure you use enough pins to hold it in place, because these are very biasy. These 60-degree triangles, there's a lot of stretch to them, so we don't want any puckers or pulling. And so as you're pinning it together, make sure everything matches up, and then we're just going to come to the machine and piece everything together. All right, and you're using right sides together. We're going to make sure everything's lined up. And I'm going to take my pins out as I go. I know some of you don't. You'll sew over the pins, but I'm not that brave. All right, and I'm just going to start sewing down. I'm going to take my time. And when I come close to the pin, I'm just gonna pull it out because I wanna make it nice and stable. I'm gonna put right there where my pins are. And then I'm just gonna keep moving. Down it. Now, you'll notice I'm stretching it just slightly just to pull those puckers that direction, but also I have aligned where my points are matching up. If you'll align it so the points match up, you won't have any problems whatsoever. There we go. And we want to go right across that point and do just a little stretching just to pull those wrinkles out. All right, let me show you what it looks like. There we go. There's our cute little table topper. I'm going to hurry and iron it, and then we're going to take it over to the frame and put it on the frame and start quilting it. I'm going to give you some quilting tips as we're quilting so that you can understand my process, and then you can make your own process. I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me today.